The rain fell softly on the highway, creating patterns of light and shadow across the wet asphalt. Tom gripped the steering wheel of his truck, his eyes tired from the long day's work. The windshield wipers moved back and forth in a steady rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. He was thinking about his daughter Emma, waiting for him at home, probably doing her homework at the kitchen table. Tom had been a single father for 3 years now. His wife had passed away suddenly, leaving him alone to raise their 8-year-old daughter. Every day was a challenge, but he had learned to find strength in the small moments. Emma's laughter, her drawings on the refrigerator, the way she hugged him goodnight. The road ahead was dark and empty. It was almost 8 o'clock in the evening, and most people were already home with their families. Tom was looking forward to getting back, to heating up the casserole his neighbor had made, to sitting with Emma and listening to her talk about her day at school. That's when he saw them. At first, they were just shapes in the rain, 2 figures walking along the side of the highway, one tall and one small. As Tom's headlights swept over them, his heart clenched. An elderly woman, her white hair plastered to her head by the rain, was holding the hand of a young child. They had no umbrellas, no raincoats. They were soaked through, walking slowly, carefully, as cars rushed past them in the darkness. Tom felt something stir inside his chest. He couldn't just drive by. He couldn't leave them there in the rain and the dark on this dangerous road. Without thinking too hard about it, he pulled his truck over to the side of the highway and turned on his hazard lights. He grabbed his jacket from the passenger seat and stepped out into the rain. The cold drops hit his face immediately, and he hurried toward the 2 figures. "Excuse me," he called out gently, not wanting to startle them. "Are you all right?" The elderly woman stopped walking and turned to face him. Her face was lined with age and worry, but her eyes were kind. The child beside her, a little boy who looked about 6 years old, clung to her hand tightly. His small body was shivering. "We're managing," the woman said, her voice quiet but dignified. "Our car broke down about 2 miles back. We're walking to find help." Tom's heart sank. 2 miles in this weather, at night with a child. The nearest gas station was at least 3 more miles ahead. They would never make it safely. "Please," Tom said, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. "Let me give you a ride. It's not safe out here, especially for the little one." The woman hesitated. She looked down at the boy whose teeth were chattering. Tom could see the conflict in her eyes. She was from a generation that had been taught to be careful, to not trust strangers. But she was also a grandmother who could see that her grandson was suffering. "My name is Tom," he said gently. "I have a daughter about his age. I promise you I just want to help." The woman's shoulders seemed to relax slightly. She looked at Tom's face, searching for something. Whatever she saw there must have reassured her, because she nodded slowly. "I'm Margaret," she said. "This is my grandson, Danny, thank you." Tom helped them into the warm cab of his truck. He turned the heat up as high as it would. Go and grabbed an old blanket from behind the seat, wrapping it around Danny's small shoulders. The boy's lips were blue from the cold, and Tom felt a surge of relief that he had stopped. "Where can I take you?" Tom asked as he pulled back onto the highway. Margaret was quiet for a moment. Her hands, weathered and wrinkled, were folded in her lap. "I don't know," she finally admitted, and Tom could hear the exhaustion in her voice. "We were on our way to my daughter's house in Portland. She's Danny's mother. But my car, it just stopped working, and I don't have much money for a tow truck or repairs." Tom glanced over at her. In the dim light of the truck's dashboard, he could see tears forming in her eyes. She was trying to be strong, but the weight of the situation was crushing her. "It's all right," Tom said softly. "We'll figure something out." He drove in silence for a few minutes, thinking. Portland was 4 hours away. It was already late. These 2 people, this 91-year-old woman and this small child, needed more than just a ride. They needed safety. They needed warmth. They needed rest. Tom made a decision. "I live about 20 minutes from here," he said. "It's not much, just a small house. But it's warm and dry. Why don't you both come stay with us tonight? In the morning, we can call a tow truck for your car and figure out how to get you to Portland." Margaret looked at him with surprise. "We couldn't possibly impose." "You're not imposing," Tom interrupted gently. "My daughter Emma would be happy to meet Danny, and honestly, I would feel terrible leaving you at a motel or somewhere unfamiliar when we have an extra room." Margaret's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of gratitude. "You're very kind," she whispered. When they arrived at Tom's house, Emma came running to the door. Her eyes widened when she saw Margaret and Danny, both still wrapped in the blanket, their clothes damp. "Dad, who are they?" Emma asked. "These are our friends, Margaret and Danny," Tom explained. "They had some car trouble and they're going to stay with us tonight. Can you help me make them feel welcome?" Emma's face lit up with the kind of pure kindness that only children possess. "Of course. Danny, do you want to see my room? I have toys." Danny looked up at his grandmother, who nodded with a tired smile. The two children disappeared down the hallway, and Tom could hear Emma's cheerful voice explaining where everything was. That night, Tom made hot soup and sandwiches. They sat around the kitchen table, the four of them, like a makeshift family. Margaret told stories about her life, about the farm where she grew up, about her late husband who had passed away just last year. Tom talked about his wife, about the grief he carried, about learning to be both mother and father to Emma. There was something healing in that conversation. Two people who had lost their partners, who were carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, finding comfort in each other's understanding. Danny and Emma played together, building towers with blocks and laughing. The sound of their joy filled the house in a way it hadn't been filled in a long time. When it was time for bed, Tom showed Margaret and Danny to the guest room. As he was about to leave, Margaret touched his arm. "Thank you," she said. "Not just for the ride or the room. Thank you for seeing us, for stopping. So many people drove by tonight, and you were the only one who cared enough to help." Tom felt his throat tighten with emotion. "We all need help sometimes," he said quietly. The next morning, Tom called a tow truck and arranged for Margaret's car to be repaired. But something had changed. Over breakfast, Margaret mentioned that her daughter in Portland was working overseas for 6 months. She and Danny had actually been planning to stay in a temporary apartment alone. Emma tugged on Tom's sleeve. "Dad," she whispered loudly, "can they stay with us, please?" Tom looked at Margaret, at the hope in Danny's eyes, at his daughter's earnest face. He thought about his empty house, about the loneliness that had settled into its corners. He thought about how right it had felt last night, having people around the table, having laughter in the halls. "We have the room," Tom said slowly. "If you'd like to stay while your daughter is away, you'd be welcome here." Margaret's hand went to her heart. "Are you sure?" Tom smiled, really smiled for the first time in months. "I'm sure." And so a chance encounter in the rain became something more. A single father, a widow, and 2 children who needed each other became a family, not by blood but by choice, not by obligation but by love. Sometimes the best decisions are the ones we make with our hearts. In the rain on a dark highway, when we choose to stop and see another person's need. Sometimes helping someone else is exactly how we help ourselves. The rain had brought them together, but it was kindness that made them family. The end.